Okay, friends, let's do it again, shall we? Another true story of terror with DREHTWOG. So settle in and get ready for another wild tale of terror. Before we get started, I just want to apologize for the poor audio quality on my last True Tales of Terror. My microphone wasn't quite up to par, and I've made sure that isn't an issue anymore, as I have a proper mic now. Alright, that said, let's get to it. Location: Vermont, America. I was hired by the owner of a beautiful old farmhouse. The owner lived in New York City, roughly 3.5 hours away. He required there be a caretaker that lived in the farmhouse, tending to it, maintaining the house. That caretaker was me. This was an incredible opportunity, and I took the position immediately. Meeting the owner by chance and random happenstance, it was as if the stars had aligned, and it wasn't a choice so much as fate calling. The owner would come up from the city monthly, and at times every other weekend. I was expected to have the house in order and prepared to entertain several guests as needed. The house was large and sat on a massive property exceeding 150 acres. The house itself was old, but had been kept in good shape. Windows were modern and had several amenities fitted in. Downstairs was large and open. Entering the house was a big mudroom lined with rustic benches and classic farmhouse decor. From there, a large kitchen fully decked with high-end culinary equipment opened to a massive living room with stone fireplace surrounded with 2 giant glass windows that spanned the entire front of the house. It had several comfortable couches and chairs placed throughout, the walls dark with a natural wood lining, stained dark walnut. There was a pretty big TV, but the focal point being the huge windows with the fireplace right in the center. Continuing past the living room was a grand dining room, furnished with large hand-carved table with seating for 10. Large hutches hugged the walls, full of delicate dinnerware, neatly stacked behind frosted and etched glass. Moving past was a door that went back to the kitchen, connected by a short hall that had stairs to the second floor on your right. Another open door back to the kitchen, and a locked door on the left, which was the owner's room. It was kept locked, and only he had the key. Upstairs, a bathroom with its gold fittings and Italian marble, straight at the top of the stairs. The rest of the upstairs was long, straight hallway with 8 separate bedrooms, 4 doors on each side. Artwork from the city had made its way to Vermont and adorned the walls. Most of these rooms were similar, and all contained a bed frame with a mattress fully made, a small nightstand, dresser and bureau, and a vanity. On each nightstand was a near-identical table lamp, and each room contained a unique painting hung above the bed. Most were old barns, paintings and/or photography of covered bridges. When the snow comes, this place will be mobbed, the owner mentioned while showing me the house, because this was its purpose: selling rooms to skiers and snowboarders from the city. The outside was incredible, with huge fields surrounded by thick forest. There was a massive old barn that contained the heavy equipment needed to maintain the large property. Several ATVs for the trails on the lot. There were trails that cut deep into the forest and looped back around, all contained on the property. It at times felt almost too good to be true. I was hired in midsummer and enjoyed being caretaker. It was a great gig. Well, it was until it wasn't. The arrangement was perfect. I'd stay there and get paid to do so, getting reimbursed on any costs related to maintenance or requests. I had selected the room, number 1. Not that it mattered. They were literally all the same. Several months passed, and all was well. I went about the required tasks of maintaining the property every day, mowing the lawn and large fields. There was always something that needed to be done, fixed, or replaced. Then weekends were where the owner would call ahead, so I could stock the house with whatever was asked. Sometimes grocery, and sometimes only the black market could facilitate the request. It didn't matter. It was my job. And when a call came on Thursday evening, I dutifully made a list and made it happen. Some weekends, the owner would arrive with no guests, and we would drink together in the large living room, laughing and sharing tales. We actually became good friends over these months. Then, there was a shift in behavior, and the owner was not appearing regularly. The weather was changing too, and it was starting to move into autumn. With the weather came a strange feeling of dread and isolation. This house was miles from the nearest neighbor, and several more to the closest store. If you needed a big chain store, it was hours away. I actually don't mind the isolation and love the deep forest of Vermont, but the feeling of dread was new and odd. I would quickly find out why. That night I locked up the house and did a final walkthrough. Shut off the lights and checking doors and windows, I went upstairs preparing for sleep. Now, being in an old farmhouse with a long history going back hundreds of years, it can be creepy at times. Prior to what is about to unfold, I never saw much of anything. There was an occasional feeling of being watched, and I remember the odd feeling well. I entered my room as I had for months, turned on the small table lamp. Laying down, I reached out for the lamp switch and turned it off. I couldn't shake the bizarre feeling of doom that laid heavy on me like a weighted blanket. Brushing it off, I waited for sleep. And it didn't take long. I was exhausted from fixing one of the property's many fences and the million other things I had to do each day. Within a few minutes, I was quickly asleep. Now, it should be noted, I usually dream, but nothing really to speak of. Just mundane randomness and nothing more. I often don't even remember them to begin with. This night was different, because I almost immediately went into a very vivid dream. In this dream, I wake up in the very room I'm in the same house. It's still dark out, and the hall light is on, coming in through the small gap under the door. Just as I look to the door, the shadow of someone's feet are seen in the gap of the door. The handle starts violently twisting, quickly left and right. I jump up, open the door, to nothing, and start walking down the stairs, seeing all the lights have been turned on. This is when I actually wake up, suddenly, and disoriented by the weird dream. I look around and the hall light isn't on. Nothing is wrong, so I lay my head back down and drift back to sleep. I'm not sure how long it took, but I was pretty quickly back asleep. And within moments, I was right back into the same exact dream. It started over and repeated the same as last time. Every detail, every nuance, the same. Just as before. Right before I reached the bottom floor of the house, I woke up again. I remember thinking to myself, what the fuck? Looking around and seeing no light in the hall, no sounds in the house. I can't overstate how disorienting it is to awaken from a dream, to the same room as the dream. It's weird. Once again, I brushed it off, not really sure what to think, and laid back down, drifting to sleep once again. As before, and once again I started the same dream all over again. Footsteps this time. I notice the light on and I see the shadow breaking the light cast under the door from the hall light. Just as before, the door handle starts shaking. And just as it's about to open, I jump out of bed and fling the door open. I start walking down the stairs. I wake up once again. I reached over and turned on the light, got up and checked the hallway, opening the door to the darkness and silence, only achieved in the deep New England forests. Nothing there. There's nothing there. I closed the door, laid back down and reached over, turning off the lamp. Within moments, back asleep, and beginning the same dream all over again, exactly the same as the last three. I awoke suddenly just as before, nothing but silence. This is fucking crazy, I remember thinking, laying there in the dark. A cool, pale light coming in the window cast by the moon. I again closed my eyes and drifted back to sleep. The dream started the same once again. The footsteps. Thump. Thump. The hall light showing the feet standing there outside the door. And the handle started violently shaking. I jolted awake and sat up fully, looking at the door in absolute disbelief. The hall light was on. I heard the deep thud of boots hitting the old floorboards of the farmhouse, and I watched as 2 feet came the rest, blocking out some of the light coming in through the door. The handle started to twist back and forth, and I couldn't believe it was actually happening. I stood up and walked to the door, grabbing a baseball bat I had leaning up against my nightstand. I built up enough nerve and grabbed the handle, twisting it quickly and pulling it open, feeling no resistance. It's empty, and nothing is out of place. Except the hall light is actually on this time, and shouldn't be. And against every fiber of my being, I start to walk down the stairs, just as I had done in the dream. Every light in the house is on, and an eerie silence increases every sound I make. I slowly move into the kitchen, passing the owner's locked door. I check the kitchen door, locked, and start moving into the living room. Turning lights off as I move through. I reached the living room and the hair started standing on end. A shiver ran down my spine. The 2 giant windows of the living room turned into massive mirrors that night, and when the lights were on as they were now, they only shone a reflection of the room I found myself standing. I brought my gaze to the reflection, disregarding everything in me telling me not to look. As my eyes focused on my own reflection, I could see a silhouette standing just behind me, tall and black, motionless, but watching. I could feel it, watching. I broke my stare and ran through the dining room, darted for the stairs and ran up to my room, fired everything I had in my backpack as quick as I could. I grabbed my keys, made my way back downstairs to the mudroom, locked up the old farmhouse, tossed on my boots and ran outside, jumping into my truck and starting it up quickly. Its headlights lit up the desolate driveway and cast some light on the old farmhouse. I could feel the darkness of that thing, that entity. I drove down the driveway for the last time. And as I turned onto the road and put the house in my rear view, I looked one last time. And there in those massive windows, lights on, stood the silhouette, same as before, watching. It was several weeks later. I must have missed the call. The owner left a voicemail. He thanked me for all the work I had done and remarked that I had lasted longer than most, implying that he couldn't keep a caretaker on site. I remember when I had first seen it, I couldn't believe how lucky I was. And now I knew why. Then he said he knew there was something wrong with the house, and that's why he only stays for short visits. He said he's had caretakers leave on the first night. He went on to explain that his locked room was the only room he would sleep in, and explained it was an addition added to the original house separately. And once, before the additional room was added, he used room number 1 upstairs, the same room I had used, and had a similar, frightening experience. Apparently, staying in the addition room prevented him from these strange encounters. Even today, it gives me the chills to think about what happened. Why the rapid succession of dreams over and over, only to actually wake up and enact the dream in real life. Once I actually saw that black figure, I was done. I'm not gonna wait around and see what happens. I'm not interested in playing with the dead. Well, thanks for watching, everyone. That wraps another True Tales of Terror with DREHTWOG. Remember to check back. I'll be posting more regularly. Well, that does it for today's story time, everyone. I hope you enjoyed it. It's been another fun one to get out there. Take care of yourselves. And until next time. Alright, everyone. I really appreciate you taking the time to listen to the story. It means a lot to me. Remember, it really helps creators out a ton if you can toss me a subscription, a like, and feel free to leave a comment. Until we meet again, this has been True Tales of Terror with DREHTWOG. Be safe out there.